Well, yeah. I mean, there's whole businesses just made for selling products to agents. Mm-hmm. So, oh, by the way, I hit the live button.
Nice.
I was gonna wait a second to let you. I was waiting to see what you said next before. Normally I do a countdown right here, and I didn't. So that's funny. Wanted to see how many people would jump on. I was trying to sneak people because I do like the minute countdown, but I took the countdown off because I haven't updated the graphic on it, and I haven't had time to. So, and I hate that other one, the generic one's like do. So here we go. We are live. What's up, Master Jedi? Welcome. We're live. REALMigos featuring Sarah Morris, the fourth REALMigo of the channel. Welcome.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
happy to, yes. And so we have some exciting news happening on the channel. At a certain point on the live stream tonight, Sarah will give birth.
Absolutely.
So if you hear a splash, we'll know it's starting. So Sarah, you're due next week, right?
Yeah, I'm due on Tuesday.
Nice.
And so it's possible, you could see like birth live on YouTube.
Hopefully we don't get the whole thing. I don't know how YouTube would be with live births, but it would do great for REALMigos ratings. So I'm going to root for it.
I don't want to know what the thumbnail graphic will be for that, but
oh yeah, we'll have to change the thumbnail for sure. Jeremy Blanton from South Carolina. What's up, man? Ian, you were on vacation last week, so it's your fault we didn't have REALMigos. I lie. We both were on vacation.
We were both gone. I was working. You were on vacation.
You were not working. No.
I was at a social media conference. Where were you?
I was checking out new labels for the REALMigos. Whistle Pig. Yes. Tonight's official, unofficial sponsor, Whistle Pig. Piggyback. So open up every time we say, "Hey Sarah, are you having your baby yet?" Take a shot. So it's going to be the drinking live stream tonight. So Sarah, have you had the baby yet? Drink. All right. So Sarah is always a renowned guest, and she always brings in lots of information about what's going on with interest rates and what's going on in the market. I got a few things I'd love to talk about tonight. Number one, being interest rates. Number two, Ian and I were in a text thread today with somebody, and they brought up a really great point, and we'll talk about it. And that's appraisals, because I think we're going to start seeing issues with appraisals. Correct me if I'm wrong, Sarah. But last I checked, interest rates around 4.5%. What's going on, Sarah? You said interest rates are going to start coming back down.
I said, here, let me requote, and I still hold true to, I still think this is very true, is that once the Fed starts truly combating the inflation issue, then we will start seeing mortgage rates start coming down. That has not happened yet. So right now we're seeing and that's why rates are continuing to increase. So we've seen inflation get worse, continuing to get worse. And so mortgage rates have continued to go up. And I think one of the big misconceptions, especially when you come to news headlines and everything that's been happening over the last couple of weeks, is that people assume that the Fed fund rate is the same as mortgage rates, or they're, if one goes up, the other one goes up. And that's not the case at all. Increasing the Fed fund rate is a good thing for mortgage rates, because increasing the Fed fund rate is the only way that we can truly tackle the inflation issue. And so as the Fed continues to increase the Fed fund rate, if it's 25 bips or if it's 50 bips, which they keep going back and forth about, those rate hikes are good for bonds. And when bonds are happy, mortgage rates go down. So the reason why there was some conflict when the Fed fund rate when they announced that it was increasing only 25 bips versus the 50 that they were hoping for, is because Powell said that they're going to be super aggressive on combating inflation, but they also hinted that they were going to possibly do the balance sheet runoff. And so this was something I had also said before. So keep this in mind. These are like the buzzwords you want to hear. Fed fund rate going up is good. That means bonds will be happy and mortgage rates will start going down. Balance sheet runoff, that is bad for bonds, and that is bad for mortgage rates. If that's happening, that means mortgage rates will continue to go up. But the balance sheet runoff will make the stock market happy. So they're in a battle against each other. So basically you have what's good for stocks, what's good for mortgage rates, and it's not the same thing. So balance sheet runoff is stocks and Fed fund rate is mortgage rates. So that's what we're seeing right now. We only have one, Fed fund rate increase that's happened. Or that's happening so far. So as we see those other ones come into place, we see inflation finally being tackled and that coming down, then that's when we should see mortgage rates start coming down.
Hey, Sarah, can you just quickly go over what like that quarter point increase is in numbers for like, let's say a $500,000 house?
Well, it's not. So the quarter point increase isn't with mortgage rates though. It's with the Fed fund rate. And what the Fed fund rate controls is more of that short-term credit and the short-term, like that you're going to see, which is more like credit cards and things like that. It's not associated with the actual mortgage rate. So if you see like the 25 bip increase in Fed fund rate, it doesn't mean, oh, now mortgage rates are up 25 bips. So it's not even correlated with each other.
Good to know.
It's interesting. It's funny. I don't ever listen to Meet Kevin. I happened just to see something on his channel talking about this. I knew we had you on, so I thought, what the heck? I like noise in the background. But what he said was pretty interesting. With everything that's going on with Ukraine, it's causing uncertainty in the market. So what's happening is our interest rates, why they're not going up even faster is that they follow more towards the 10-year treasury bond. So what's happening is people are getting out of other investments and taking that and moving into the 10-year. So that's actually making the 10-year stronger. So, he didn't say that the, Ukraine situation was good, but he said that it actually helps the rates not go up as fast. And it's also part of the reason why they went up from only, they were going to do a half a point to only a quarter point raise, is because they have to balance that. So initially it was supposed to be a half point. So rates really could be going up faster had we not had this Ukraine stuff, is basically what he said. I could be wrong. But I've followed the 10-year obviously. And so that's been something I've kept an eye on. And it doesn't really, since they don't correlate as far as like what the Fed fund rate is, doesn't correlate with that. It's something I keep an eye on. What are your thoughts with that?
Yeah. So, that's not completely false, or that's not false at all. So when anytime we're at war, have risk of war or that geopolitical uncertainty, there definitely is people have a fear with stocks or short-term kind of investments. And so people will go into something that is more long-term and that is safer, which is what bonds are. Bonds are considered safer. So usually when you're in any type of war, like if you think there might be an impending war or any type of, geopolitical uncertainty there, people will pull their money out of stocks and typically invest more in bonds. And that's historically just what people tend to do. And so when that was especially initially happening, we were seeing a little bit of a reprieve in rates, and rates weren't going up as quickly at first. What's happening now, though, is because of everything that's been going on, it's actually been harder on inflation because of the oil issue. And so now, the higher price in oil and now higher price in foods and things like that is actually causing inflation to go up more, which is having more of an impact. And why we've actually in the last week mainly, but week and a half, we've seen rates go up even higher in the MBS market, get worse. So that when that was first happening, we were seeing that a lot, but now it's more transitioning to the inflation. And another reason why it was 25 versus 50 is because the Fed waited so long to combat the inflation issue that now they have to be really careful on how quickly they try to tackle it, because they could hit us into a recession sooner. Right. So that's really, they're in this really bad juggling act or kind of tug of war with okay, we need to battle inflation. We need to do the Fed fund, increase Fed fund rate to do this, but we can only do it so much or else we're going to, push our economy to a recession even sooner. So that's one of the things that's really up in the air right now. And what scared with Powell's comments, what scared the market was, okay, they're being super aggressive, but are they going to start doing balance sheet runoff really aggressively too, and then push us to a recession even sooner than that? So they kind of just they put their heads in the sand for too long, and now it's just that we're in a position where they're trying to make everyone happy and trying to find the best way to do it.
Word on the street is they might go up 0.5 point as early as May. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's necessary to tackle it depends on your viewpoint, and everyone's going to have a different viewpoint on this. So don't, this is just mine. We have to tackle the inflation issue. We just have to. And that's the only way that we can do it. And they really should have been doing this sooner. They should have started doing this last year, and they didn't. And the longer we wait, or the longer they wait to implement these things, the worse inflation's going to get. And I don't think that we can handle that, but that's just my opinion.
It's a tough balancing act. And the one thing I think that we can all agree on is it should have been started sooner, but then we play Monday morning quarterback. I think a lot of people were saying this a while ago. They're like, hey, we need to combat inflation now. And everybody's used to the old kick the can down the road for somebody else. And now we actually have to pick up the can and throw it away. So question is, does the Fed fund rate affect the base rate of ARMs, or is that also relatively uncorrelated?
So ARMs are going to be based off it. So you have like several different types of ARMs, and that's going to have a base rate to it. Since they're more short term, the Fed fund rate isn't going to specifically target ARMs, but you're going to see more of an effect on your short term loans versus long term loans, if that makes sense, like your short term credit. So like if you're doing like a 3-year, 5-year something, you'll probably see more of an indicator, but it's not going to be directly correlated.
Okay. And then this is a good one too, Stephen. What kind of bond? What kind of bond does the tapering affect? The 10-year?
We generally use the 10-year as a standing point, but it's just them. It's whatever they choose to invest in, which is going to be your notes and and usually your 10-year bonds, but your bonds. Got it.
So the big question is going to be, how long do we see? Okay. The two questions are, do we see, what's it called? Oh God, I lost my train of thought.
That fund rate.
Recession. There we go. Do we see a recession soon? And B, what does that do to the housing market? I'm sure that's why everyone wants, this is a good topic for everyone. So by your best estimation, does this push us, since we've kicked the can down the road so far, and now we're tackling it softly instead of tackling it? So rates don't go up really high, I guess, if you want to look at it that way. Does that push us faster into recession?
So I pulled numbers on historically what we've seen when we've had high inflation and tackled it and gone into a recession, which was the 70s, 80s, and then the 90s and early 2000s. For like as an example, but I mean, usually once we hit high inflation, we start tackling it. We usually we've in the past gone to a recession within, 1 to 2 years, like in a couple of years. I think it depends on what the Fed sticks to, since they said they are going to be aggressive. I'm not a fortune teller, but I think I was like, crystal ball and fortune teller merged together into a word. No, but honestly, it depends on what the Fed does, because they'll say they'll do something and then they've retracted a little bit, with each time, with how aggressive they've gotten. So it depends on how aggressive they'll get and how that will affect if we go into a recession and how soon we go into a recession. Right now, with things that I've seen and things that we are seeing, it looks like that's the way that we're headed. But it really will depend on what those decisions are made by the Fed. What I think is that if you're looking to buy right now, and if you're concerned about interest rates, I would be in a lock bias stance. And most likely knowing that if we do hit a recession always causes mortgage rates to go down. So if in the past, historically, so knowing
if you look at 2008, they went down. I mean, you went from an adjustable rate, but I mean, rates, from 2008 till last year went down pretty, they did a slow trickle down.
Yeah. So like if we look in like the 70s and 80s, like when we had a bad inflation where it went from 7%, we're at about 8% right now in inflation, just so everyone knows. So in the 70s and 80s, we went from 7% to 14% in inflation. Mortgage rates went from 12% to 18%. Back in the day when that was a good rate. But then after, with the inflation response, with combating it, and the Fed got the inflation down from 14% to 5%, and it caused mortgage rates to go from 18% to 12%. And then in the 90s, we went from mortgage rates being 7% to 8.5% with the inflation. And then once the Fed fund rate was increased, the inflation response went from 3.5 to 1%. And then mortgage rates went from 8.5% to 5.5%. So every time that we've had those, 08 was a little different because 08 was kind of a manufactured recession. It wasn't a natural recession in the sense that it had more to do with the bad and poor practices happening with putting people in bad loans and other things going on. But if we tackle the inflation issue, inflation comes down. Even if we have a if we have a recession, we should see mortgage rates go down. That historically, that is the trend, and that should be what's happening, or not what's happening, but should happen if we go there.
When you talk to people about interest rates, do you pull out tarot cards?
No. That'd be a fun trick, though.
Yeah. So what's interesting, there's so many layers of this. So if we see a recession, which it could be pretty likely depending on the moves we make going forward. When I say me, I don't mean we, I mean the powers that be. But should we see a recession, you're saying potentially rates would come down. The problem then is with a recession, how many people actually lose their jobs, right? So then how many people can actually afford? Does that mean prices come back down if we see a recession? Or does that just mean prices stagnate? So this is a good question for you, Ian, and actually all of us. And then here's the question right here. Do you think prices will rise in Austin more since more people will try to buy before interest rates rise? I think this is a dual-sided question, right? Do you think that what'll happen in the market if we see recession, but do you think that prices are going to continue to rise between now and that recession happens?
Ian, did you want to answer first, or do you want?
Oh my gosh! I mean, you're the lender. I think you should answer your way, and then I'll go after that.
Okay. So I think what's interesting about what we're going through right now and what will tie into this question is that we still have a huge demand in the market. We have a huge lack of supply. In previous recessions, we didn't have an issue with lack of supply and huge demand and nowhere to go. So I think, prices in Austin, they could go down. I think if anything, they would probably stay flat and maybe slightly increase, because this is a personal opinion, just because we still have people out there that need to get into homes. And I think that as far as like work and everything else, even if we're in a recession, a lot of people work remotely and work in tech and all these other things. And we're like a big hub for that, with everyone moving here and a lot of jobs that were created here versus maybe some places that are more in the suburbs or rural areas. So I think in Austin, I couldn't imagine seeing a huge decline in pricing. But again, we don't have any like historical data to base what a recession with lack of supply looks like either. So that's why I think it'll be very different.
What was pretty interesting, I was explaining this to a client that called me today. I have a question for you. Let me not forget this question is, are we still seeing a reduction in the amount of new applications? So I want to talk about that in a second. But to my point was that if you're comparing 08 till now, which everybody likes to do, there's a couple of things that are really at play here that are different. Number one, we have more people in that 33 to 40 buying age than we did in 08. So that is a difference. And you brought this up, and I've used your graphics and videos showing that there has been an increase in that buying pool. Two, in 08, there was 3.7 million homes available. We're at 900,000. It's really, really low. I mean, in Austin, we're at 0.3 of a month. And it's crazy is the suburbs around Austin are actually, and I can show the numbers. I put this in my video that came out Tuesday, that Austin was increasing much faster. In fact, here's the if you're looking at just the Austin numbers, the blue line represents 2021. I took out 2020 on accident. And the red line represents 2019. If you look at 2019 and 2021, they're pretty similar. One grows a lot faster, right? But the overall trends are the same. And if we look at the yellow line, which is so far this year, we've gone up 15 grand from January till now, a much flatter rate than we saw. In fact, it's more of more closely follows 2019. But what's interesting is that we do have a much higher buyer pool. The unfortunate part is with rates going up, gas prices going up, that affordability issue is now becoming into play. If we didn't have inflation creeping up like this, we didn't have gas prices going up, this conflicts, would people be able to afford more? So the question becomes, how will this impact prices going forward? And you kind of answered the question there. I think prices are going to be a lot tamer than they are. I think it would be a hell of a lot worse if we were at 3 months inventory. If we were at 2.7, like generally the highest I've seen going back to like 2017, the most I really saw was like 2.7 months inventory. If we were at that, I think that would be the catalyst to really push prices down. I just don't see us getting that high. And I was showing a client today, like right now it's Wednesday. For the last few Wednesdays, I always gauge the week on Wednesdays because Wednesday, most of the stuff goes pending that listed the following Thursday by Wednesday, right? You're negotiating, you start taking off, you start, negotiating and putting it as pending in the MLS by like Wednesday. As I'm one of those people who likes to wait for checks to get the title before I put it to pending. So if you look at today, it's like 1,800 listings. If you looked at Saturday, it was 2,300 listings around there, Ian, right? So 500 have dropped off already. Now we'll probably have 500 hit, but this Wednesday was about the same as the previous Wednesday, and it's pretty close to the previous. So we're about 200 units higher than what we saw probably in January, but that's not a lot. And so I think we will see more inventory, but do we get up to a month? Do we get up to a month and a half? Do we get up to 2 months? That's where I think it's going to take agents and people really paying attention to what's happening with the inventory and all of this other stuff, because I think prices will be flatter this year. Problem is that am I wrong? Am I wrong? And when I say am I wrong, is that our price is going to escalate faster than I'm anticipating. That's where I think.
Got it. I've seen prices increase on our end already. And that goes into that appraisal thing. But Ian.
If we look at, so I was in San Diego last week and I did a tour of a house. It was 625 square feet.
You got a great tan.
Thank you. 625 square feet selling for like 1.7 million.
Damn.
It was great. Anyway, so I look at that and then I think about how many people relocated to Austin. And then my next question from there specifically, then my next question ends up being, well, if you have all these people that move here, let's say that there is a recession and they do lose their jobs. Well, you've got all these people tweeting that say, listen, if you've got money in the stock market, take it out and put it in a tangible asset, right? So what does that do for the people that have relocated here and still can't go back if they wanted to? Right? I don't think that changes. And like Sarah said, and like you've said, like we all say, the inventory is still so low. And we have such a population increase and a lack of available housing. So many people in apartments that are just waiting for the prices to drop or an opportunity to get into a house, that I think what'll end up happening is the builders may slow down production, but it won't necessarily impact our market too much.
That's what was really interesting. So like, I know, Jeremy, you mentioned about applications, right?
Yes.
Asking about, loan applications going down. And one of the things is that loan applications are down, but they're not down as much as what's being publicized, because a lot of people don't factor in cash buyers. And 25% of the market is now cash buyers for purchases. And
go ahead. A week ago or 2 weeks ago, we had Javier on, and we actually did an exercise on here where we looked at, Ian pulled up 2017 or 18, somewhere around there, the amount of cash solds for that month for February or January, and then for this year. And it was what, 20? It was only up 2%.
Yeah, it was really small.
Yeah, it was up 2%. And Javier's like, no way, that can't be right. And he looked in Phoenix, and it's about this. It was about the same, like maybe 3% higher. So yes, so the point is, yes, there are more cash buyers, but it's not as high as you would think. I think the point I want to make about applications being down, and this is more of a question and a point, is that there are a lot of people who have been on the sidelines. So application being down. So basically what the is it MBS or MBA puts out every week, like this is how many applications we had for new home purchases and for refis. Mm-hmm. Obviously they're going to be down because people aren't refining when interest rates are at 4% or 4.5%. So obviously that's going to probably pull it down. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about the number, if they're separate or the same, but what I think that I'm seeing, and this is a question really, is are those people that there's a lot of people that all got pre-approved, right? Towards the end of the year, they got pre-approved and maybe didn't go under contract. So they're still sitting there waiting, even though they have pre-approval. So yeah, we are lower pre-approval numbers, but there's still probably a bigger backup of people waiting to buy a home. Do you think that could be right?
No, I agree with that. So, I mean, I think there is a decrease in the applications. And I think part of it is because, rates have gone up and pricing has gone up. People waited too long. And that definitely is a factor.
There's another factor in there, and it's the amount of new builds that we have, because they'll submit an application at the beginning of the process, maybe.
Yeah.
And then at the very end of the process, let's say it's 7 months or 9 months later, then they'll submit it again. So we could be in a period where it's lagging right now just from that.
And the interesting thing about new builds is it does, because we have some clients that have been waiting a year, 2 years, whatever it is. So it's really interesting how that process has worked and affected those numbers, because there was some numbers that came out today where what was it? It was like 407 homes for sale. So construction new home sales numbers came out today, and it said that there was 407 homes for sale. But the thing was, only 35,000 of those, or 9%, are actually completed. The rest of them haven't even started, or they're in construction. So that's another thing when you look at new home starts, new construction home starts, or sales, is those numbers aren't for completed homes or homes that are available right now for people to get into. So those can get skewed a little bit, because if you look at that, you're like,
it's so funny you say this, because there is a channel out there that said a while ago that rental rates are the reasons, rental rates not catching up to prices, why Austin's going to crash. And then they said later, well, Austin's going to, I was wrong. They didn't say they were wrong, but obviously they were wrong because it didn't crash. But they pivoted. A year later, it's like, oh, now it's because there's so many new construction homes being built. And I was like, hello, if you sold any real estate, you'd understand what you said is total insanity bullshit, because the supply chain issues are so bad still. I'm already 6 months. Sarah is doing the loan on my investment property in New Braunfels. We're supposed to close in October. It's March. It's not going to be done for another. We're seriously just having conversations with her 2 weeks ago about, should we lock in? We don't even know if they're going to close on at the time they even gave us. So the 90-day lock doesn't even make sense. So it's so hard. And I have multiple clients that are going to move into homes without appliances, and just delay after delay. I mean, Ian, are you seeing still a ton of delays in new construction?
Yeah, I had one finally close last Friday. Man, I've lots to say about that, but let me just take a step back and say that it was supposed to close in April. It finally closed last week, Friday. And I have a few other few others. I had one yesterday that was pushed back. It was supposed to close April 1st or the end of March, and it's closing toward the end of April. So just, constant pushbacks.
I was really happy about our one client that closed last week after everything that happened with him and what that builder put him through.
Oh, that's not the end of the story.
Well, we'll talk. I want to talk about that one in a second because that was the one that had the acceleration on it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes.
That's okay. I want to talk about that because that goes into my whole topic about appraisals. But with the storms the other day, I saw this question a while ago, Amber. I'm sorry it took me to now to get to it. But with the storms the other day, I had people saying, well, geez, there's probably going to be less homes available on the market. So a few things with the storms. I've been here 10 years. Every time there's a tornado warning, it's the same exact thing that happened when we had the storms come through for that whole week for the ice storms. I see tornado warnings and I'm like, I'm going for a jog. Ain't going to be no tornado here. And finally, through Round Rock, there's a massive tornado and I'm watching it. Like I'm watching the video and I'm like, holy crap, that's the flyover I drive all the time.
Yeah,
and I saw like the light just fall, like those lights in the freeway just fall over into the parking lot. I'm like, oh, that's a real tornado.
Every single person that I helped buy a house in like Pflugerville or Round Rock or wherever I saw the path of the tornado, I was reaching out to. And I was like, I'm sorry. I told you the reason why, one of the reasons why I moved here, I relocated here was because there's no natural disasters.
Liar. You can't say that. There's earthquakes here.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Did you see one of my team members, she lives out towards Driftwood, but she there was a video of the guy in the truck where that got caught in the tornado and the tornado picked up the truck and like turned it around.
Oh yeah.
And then landed and he was okay.
And then he took off. Driving. I was like, yes, good for you.
That would have been terrifying. Like that was nuts.
So for real, the last time there was something that major was like early 90s and it was in Gerald. It wasn't even in the Round Rock area.
Yeah.
So, for people who are watching this and they're like, oh no,
It's rare. It's completely rare. Actually, the one time I was ever in a tornado was when I lived in an apartment in downtown Austin, actually. And there was a mini one that came through. It was a horrible rainstorm and it broke all of our glass like in our in the apartment building and it like flooded inside. It was crazy because we were up on like the 5th floor or something. But that was
tell us what year that was without dating yourself? If not, don't say it.
Myself for
she was only 4 at the time.
Yes. I was a child genius. No, it was, I want to say that was around like maybe 2006, 2007, somewhere in there.
So was it like a microburst then?
I guess so. It was small because it was like horrible rainstorms, thunderstorms. It was like all these warnings. And then there was like mini tornadoes popping up. So I guess it was. But I couldn't imagine being in downtown that would have, popped up there. So that was nuts. And like we were in shock. But yeah, like all the windows it was crazy. We hid in the bathtub.
I was amazed about the path and how many homes actually were destroyed. I was amazed. I mean, I don't think it was as many as the media made it out to be, but it's quite a few from what I've seen. It was, now do I have to start taking those tornado warnings seriously? I mean, I haven't for the longest time because I feel like the boy who cried wolf with some of these things like, oh, it's going to be a crazy storm come through and there's going to be ice everywhere and everybody's going to get hurt. So we got to shut down schools. And then you're like, driving 90 miles an hour down Mopac because nobody's on it. Everybody stayed at home. So I don't know. What?
The first year I moved here, it was like raining crickets. Do you remember that?
Oh, crickets yeah.
All over. And I thought, well, if this is the worst of it, I can handle that. Right.
Yeah.
Percentage of investor loans versus like primary home owners. I don't have a percentage of that. I don't have a measurement because like I don't get anything or have a measurement of it. The best I can do is go through my pipeline and calculate what I personally have. So I can't honestly give you an answer to that, but it's a great question. I will say that as far as people that have come to me to purchase, most of it's primary. resident homes. I have over the last 2 years gotten an influx of investors interested in buying. I think because of what happened in March and the new Fannie and Freddie guidelines and pricing that came out, where it really caused like a big increase in rates and cost for investors to purchase with financing, that's probably going to be trickling down unless they're buying in cash. Just because rates are so much worse now than they have been for investment and second homes historically.
What's interesting about that particular investor question is that for the entirety of 2021, the majority of home builders had locked out second home purchases with a small subset of maybe 10%, right? So
yeah, and it was probably less than that.
That's a factor in there, a large variable.
Well, and if you think about it, inventory still last year with the amount of demand there was, inventory last year was still around a month inventory. How much of that sitting on our books? And I'll have to, it's hard to even go back and look. How much of that sitting on the books was actual like new construction waiting to be sold? Right. So that's a question. But if you look at it right now, about 35% of our inventory is new build just sitting out there. So, and when I say new build sitting out there, it's new build that you can contract on, but still not close on because it's still going to take a couple months to close. This is a great question, Austin. I wonder if people in Austin who held off on selling will start selling now, since interest rates may hamper the buying powers of buyers. I say no. I want to get your thought. I want to say no because I think sellers, a homeowner would have to potentially purchase, not all, but someone would potentially have to purchase somewhere else. So they might do it so they can go buy something before rates go too high somewhere else. That might be a reason, but I as a homeowner don't go, well, shoot, I better sell my house because interest rates are going up.
It's so crazy you say that. I've heard people say that. I've heard people say, oh, I gotta hurry up and sell. Prices are good. Interest rates are going up. I need to buy something. So I've actually heard that conversation a lot, but then the reality hits that they don't have anywhere to go. Mm-hmm. That's number one. And then also a lot of people realize that holding on to their properties, if they can, oftentimes ends up be a better wealth vehicle. Right. And so that's another second consideration. But if it's like there's a sense of urgency where they have, they're about to have their fourth kid and they just need to move to a new place, then, you have to do what the family needs as well. So to answer that question, I'm really interested in seeing what happens. I think that there will be a spike only because it also correlates with what was the traditional time for people to sell. And Austin today just dropped all of its mandates for the pandemonium stuff, face coverings. So with that is a signal that things are getting more normalized. And so I do think that there will be a slight increase or uptick in sales, in listings.
Yeah. So what's interesting about that is if prices don't get crazy, and there's an uptick in inventory, I think there'll be a lot of people purchasing. And I think a lot of those people that pulled their money out of the stock market are sitting there cash heavy going, okay, I want to buy a property. I really do think that we'll see prices start dropping. And got to preface this. We're going to continue to see prices increasing, to my estimation, through around, and we might have a month where it goes down a little bit and comes back up. But through August, we'll see prices, through July, we'll see prices pretty strong. And then we'll see that same kind of trend that I showed for this last year. But I think a lot of people are going to jump back in the market. Or do they sit and go, okay, let's see how far this rides down.
Yeah, but they do that and they're going to be waiting 3 years. We'll have already been waiting 3 years, right? How many people said that at the beginning of 2019? Not intentionally, but nobody has a crystal ball or tarot cards.
Well, and that's the thing that a lot of people that I've been hearing, and there were so many people that at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, I was encouraging them, even a month ago, I was encouraging them, if they're under contract or they're looking to make a move, they need to do it now because rates are just going to continue to go up, or we need to do an extended rate lock or do this, do what makes financial sense for them in their situation. And they're like, oh, rates are too high. I'm just going to wait because I don't, and they were already complaining rates were too high. And now they waited and now they're even higher. And they're just, and some of them, like some people, I think just had their head in the sand and they felt they got, memories are short sometimes. And I think they're like, oh, well, we had this great run of like 2%, like 2.75, like whatever interest rates for so long. It has to go back to that. Right. And it's not, and if it does, it's not anytime soon.
Can you imagine this perfect storm where you said that interest rates, a previous video, and you've kind of said it today, that interest rates probably will, to your estimation, may go down towards the end of the year. Can you imagine this perfect storm where August, September, people start seeing prices come down and interest rates drop and people just, and now there's availability. So all these FHA, VA buyers that have been, VA buyers that have been sitting there waiting. And a lot of these investors have been waiting for an investment. All jump back in the market towards the end of the year.
That would be amazing.
What's the VA price right now? What's it at?
Oh, so you mean rate or actual like purchase
price?
So actually, VA no longer has purchase price limits.
Okay, FHA.
FHA for the Travis County, it's in the 300s. Let me pull it up for you.
Okay, well, because that's a problem. Still, so even if these people are waiting and they want to use their FHA borrowing power and put their 3.5% down, what can you get in Travis County for that price point? Or 5% above that price point?
Right. Well, and the thing is, if you want, like, you can still go FHA, but you have to cover whatever is above the loan limit.
Right.
So who has that? Like,
who has the extra 200,000 sitting there on top of, and then only wants to put 3.5% down and pay a mortgage insurance premium?
Yeah. So I completely agree with you. Like, there's certain circumstances where FHA makes sense, even if you have the funds there, but usually it has to deal with something with credit, like a credit issue or something like that. But
it's interesting. You said VA doesn't have any limits. That's exciting.
Yeah, it doesn't anymore. Oh, I'm really washed out. I'm trying to pull up that number for you. Sorry. But yeah, VA doesn't. That's the really nice thing. So like you can get technically a jumbo loan, but for 0% down if you're VA. And if you're a VA,
can I go back and join? They wouldn't take me because I have asthma.
Oh no.
I was trying, man. I was trying a lot.
Well, and then if you're 100% disabled vet, you don't have to pay property taxes. So you could get like $1 million home, $2 million home.
I had clients that did that last year that bought $800,000-$900,000 homes VA. I think you actually helped one of them. Mm-hmm. And they're 100% disabled. So like they're 20,000, 25. They don't like, I'm like, well, the taxes here are going to be 25,000. And they're like, okay. I'm like, oh yeah, never mind. But even if you're like 90%, 80%, 70%, all those percents, you get a percent knocked off your taxes as well. I don't remember what I said, but Mark said he go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, sorry. I was just pulled it up and they rate and they did increase in 2022. So FHA went from the 356 to 420,680. So I apologize about that. They did go up. And so now the loan limit for FHA is 420,680.
What about VA?
VA doesn't have a limit.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mark says he disagrees with me. I don't remember what I said to make him disagree with me. That's okay. I think I disagree. I think location is going to become a bigger deal. So if you're selling closer to downtown, you'll get a much better price for your home if you're going to sell. I don't disagree, but what I was trying to say was that if you look at the median price for Austin, it's $565. And if you look at the median price for the surrounding suburbs, the MSA, it's actually $499. So it actually rose pretty high. So it's getting closer to the actual pricing of Austin. And that partly has to do with the fact that prices outside of Austin are cheaper. So people are electing to move further outside of Austin. than closer to Austin. That's not affecting Austin, but I'm saying is that the price, there's not as many sales in Austin as where you see like the MSA is like 2,500 homes sell, where Austin's like this last month was 890. So you have a lot more variance in the median there.
I mean, and also Austin isn't the target for that number, right? Like we want to think we're the center of everybody's attention, but really this is a national number. So it's funny because anytime I see, people going crazy in comments on the internet, a lot of times you'll see, it's crazy to think that you think the U.S. is the only country out there. So that's what makes me think of.
But I don't disagree. I don't think that just the pricing near downtown Austin is just going to fall out compared to if anything, you'll start to see if prices start coming down, prices further away from Austin will start dropping, and then you'll see it creep into Austin after a while. So the exterior, even though they've gone up in price, will drop first before closer to Austin. That makes sense. What can new construction buyers, were you going to say something, Ian? Sorry.
No, I was muting because Old Fashioned's playing a drinking game if I tap the mute.
No baby yet.
Yeah. Sarah, what's
they come up with something else?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody drink. Don't be driving though. If you're going to drive after this, don't. But what can new construction buyers do to protect themselves from rate increases and escalation clauses while close dates continue to be pushed back by builders? Man, it's a great question.
Already under contract is my first question.
Well, it sounds like they're under contract.
I can answer half of that question. And I think the other half would be y'all.
Yes, the rate increases. Tell us about that.
So I think with the rate increase piece, definitely, and I mentioned this before, like I've been working, I've been strategizing a lot with my clients that are under contract for new build, is make sure to get with a lender that has extended rate lock options. We actually extended ours, so now we can go over a year, a little over a year, which is great because it protects the borrower. So, I mean, and there's different costs for the different, terms for how long you lock out, but still, I mean, if you're paying a little bit extra for that, but you have I have one guy that locked in at still when we were at 3.25 and we did an extended rate lock. And now if he tried to do it today, his rate was go up to like a 4.875. So, I mean, that's totally worth it. So definitely I would say don't get distracted by like incentives or closing costs incentives. Because at the end of the day, if you're that far out, if you can get an option to have that lower rate that will last you longer term and will have that monthly savings for you, for a little extra cost, that would matter so much more in the long run and long-term savings than being like, oh, I saved $3,000 in closing costs. Like what does that matter at the end of the day if your payment is like $300 more a month, So
wait, are you saying that they should check with you even if they think they're getting a good deal from a builder?
I would love it if they came to me, but this is just a general comment that, if it was me, I would make sure I had a lender that had options for me so I could lock in an interest rate early. So I knew like I could have that sense of security, especially when it came to my monthly payment, if I was monthly payment sensitive too.
Yeah. And the other part of that question was about the escalation. Y'all just had somebody have an escalation clause. So number one, be very careful if you're going to sign a contract that has an escalation clause in it, because as Ian and Sarah found out, the builder will love to raise it right before you go to close, like 30 days out, if they have that escalation clause in there, because all they're going to say is, oh, costs went up, so we got to raise the price on you. They do. And they have a whole story about this. But then you're sitting there as a buyer going, okay, well, shoot, they just raised it. And in your case, it was like 30 grand. So they just raised this to me 30 grand, 30 days before close. Now, if I back out, I've got to go start the process over somewhere else. Now I got to go into the resale market. Can I find the same quality home for the same price even though they raised it 30 grand. So that's a question that you're going to have. Second question then is, I don't think there's a second question. That's the entire question. Because the other thing is the builder's just going to put it on the market for even higher than that $30,000. Prime example, I looked at a house in Sarah's neighborhood. Sarah didn't buy $1 million home, but she definitely lives in $1 million neighborhood now. I looked at a home that was under contract for $950,000. They had it for $1.225 million. I put this in my video on Tuesday. And I walking it with my wife. It's not done. The buyer fell out. And I'm like, this house, it's a decent floor plan. The upgrades that they picked sucked. Oh my gosh. The buyer that picked these, sometimes you buyers, you suck at picking upgrades. But anyway, and I'm like, this house sucks. And Eileen kept like telling me, oh, we should put an offer on it. I'm like, all right, put an offer 100 grand less. There's no way it's worth $300,000 more than it was originally listed for. Now we didn't get it because somebody else paid full price. Good luck with their appraisal on that because there's no comps. Like, I'm like, well, let's look at comps first. Not one. Let's use Sarah's house. That's not going to help.
That brings me to the whole idea, the backup conversation, right? Don't be afraid to put in a backup in this market because a lot of people, I don't think, are prepared for these appraisal gaps. Especially some people have softened on putting full appraisal waivers. They're like, oh, it's not as bad as it was. We're not going to put a full appraisal waiver. And then when the appraisal comes in, they're not going to keep it. So don't be afraid to put in a backup offer.
I have some people that I tell them, like, they ask, like, what does the appraisal waiver mean? And do they have the capabilities of doing that? And some people just don't. And I let them know. And I'm like, you can do a partial, like up to here, but with what I'm seeing for you, but that's something that you're going to talk about and negotiate with your realtor and depending on the home and everything else. And then I get the contract after they go under contract and I see that they went ahead and put full appraisal waiver when they don't have the capabilities of doing it just because they felt that was their only chance of actually getting the home. And so far, nothing's fallen through, but I'm just like, oi.
Well, that's
You'd be surprised where people find money. When that stuff happens.
I had someone tell me about mattress money the other day.
Mattress money, yes.
You said you need proof of funds, and they just open up a washer full of ones. Like, here you go. There's
all singles.
I had that happen. A closing that happened 2 weeks ago. They put a full appraisal waiver. Then they came and said, "Hey, it appraised for 20,000 short. My client can't make up the difference. We need you to bring the price down." And I'm like, no, go talk to your client and tell your client. I'm not telling my client shit. Are you kidding me? You were the one that gave us a full appraisal waiver. One. Number two, if you guys can't make up the difference, that's fine. I'll put it back in the market because we're going to, guess what? Get more money for it. So I would be happy.
Not only get more money for it, but you also pocketed $20,000 or whatever their earnest money was.
They had $10,000 in earnest money.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
that's like a bonus.
Either come up with the difference, and they're trying to tell me to go tell my client to bring the
price
down.
That's almost half of Bitcoin.
I call my client. Call my client and I go, hey, here's the deal. The answer you're going to give me is no. Okay. Here's what they asked me to do. Now say the word no. Okay. And that's exactly what I do with my client. Like, and guess what? They asked us to close early.
Well, that's the other thing, because again, they'll find a way because they don't want to lose that money, obviously. And they know they're not going to, how hard it was for them to get in this position to begin with.
Yeah.
So, and you knew that, which is why you said, go fly a kite.
Well, and why I make that point very strong is that a friend of ours texted Ian and I today and was like, hey, they kind of work the Austin market, but they don't. And they asked us like, hey, are you seeing appraisals come in really short? Because we had this one come in $50,000 short. They put an appraisal waiver, but they can't make up the $50,000 short appraisal waiver. So we don't know what to do. My first question was, Ian, what was my first question?
I don't remember, but I've got an answer.
I asked, I was like, well, who is the lender you use?
Oh, yes. Yeah, you did say that.
And then they answered it. And I go, have you used that lender before? Mm-hmm. The answer was no. Nope. I was like, where was the appraiser from? Not from the area at all. So it's a good point. Now, I'm not saying you have to use Sarah or use a local lender, but using a good lender that uses really good appraisers that you can at least show like, hey, because then what's going to happen in that scenario is you go back to the appraiser and go, hey, look, we have comps that help support. The trends are showing this. And then you got to fight with that appraiser to get the appraisal up. they won't always do it. So now that client either is trying to go back, even though they have appraisal waiver, to the seller and go, hey, can you come down X amount of dollars because we can't do it. And so good luck with that. I hope that it works out for them in that situation. But if you're going to try to use that as a leverage in this market to get the seller to bring the price down, it's just not the market for that. And I feel bad for you. I really do. But I didn't write that offer. So I don't.
It's a lender that I had never heard of. I don't think you had heard of him either.
No, I've never heard of him.
Who is this person? Where are they from?
We both say the same thing.
I like what Dinosaur D said about this. Sorry.
Well, and this is what I've seen an increase in what's happening right now. Oh, hi, John. So this is what I've seen happening because of the because rates have been going up and on an upward thing. So more like online lenders and random brokerages are coming out of the woodworks, and people are going online and trying to find the lowest rate possible. Most of them come at a really high cost, or it's because you have one person that, I won't say all the time, but most of the time it's because you have one person that doesn't have good people on their team, doesn't have the good local appraisers, doesn't pay people to do a good job. And it's going to be an awful experience because they don't have any overhead, and they're basically, don't have any costs. And you're going to have this bad experience. And so they're going with these really unknown people that don't know the area because they're trying to get like a no lender cost loan, or they're trying to get, these really low interest rates that are, too good to be true. And then they have a really bad experience, and you'll get someone that has a really low appraisal comes in, or something that busts at the very end, because something wasn't done right during the process. And so it really comes down to, you get what you pay for as well. You don't want to spend like tons of like costs and extra origination fees for like some kind of lender. I'm not saying that, but you also don't want to get someone that's just the cheapest either, because you probably won't make it to the closing table. Or if you do, it's going to be a really bad experience, and you probably pay a lot more money for it at the end. But on the other note about appraisals, because inventory has gotten lower, I have noticed like after, like we had 2020 where we had the gap where everyone started offering a lot more overpriced. And so appraisals had to catch up because there weren't comps. 2021, I feel that. Do you remember Clio?
Yeah, Clio. Here's Sarah's link right here.
But then you had 2021 where comps had caught up, and we weren't really having any appraisal issues. Then now we're having 2022 where there's less inventory, and the people are offering over asking again a lot more. And so now we're waiting for comps to come in. We personally haven't had a lot of issues with appraisals, but I think a lot of that is also attributed to the fact that a lot of our clients are new builds, and they went under contract about a year ago. And so the original contract price they went under contract for, they've gained so much appreciation already. So there isn't at risk for a gap. That client that you're talking about that Ian and I had, even like, and it was actually like a week before closing, because they moved up closing.
That was the shady part.
Yeah. A week
they did it to everybody too. Right before they closed, they were like, let's see who's going to drop out so we can sell it for more.
It was awful. So they moved up closing like by like 20 days or something, 20, 30 days last minute. Then a week before closing, they increased the price $30K. And then they sent that to the borrower 5 p.m. and said, we need an answer by 9 a.m.
Well, that was one, man, there's so much. They also were trying to deny an inspection and all these other things, but that's irrelevant. That's not part of it. But yes.
Are you allowed to say which builder that was?
Oh no, I'm going to put that out later. That's going to be a video.
Oh, you're going to do your own video on this?
Well, I have to. I'm actually going to interview the buyer.
Oh, nice.
That's going to be a good one.
Check out Ian's channel if you don't already. Just look up Jeremy at Austin. I'm just kidding. So I was one of the first that caught this trend happening, because I had this happen. Remember, Sarah, we had this happen with a client that happened with it's a company called, it starts with an M and ends with a stone. They try to do something very shady like that with one of our clients. And that client ended up having to pay cash last minute, because like 3 days before we closed, they just denied, the lender denied them. And then I went to Sarah because they were pre-approved with Sarah, and Sarah was like, what? No, there's no way. And we found out that the builder rep was shopping that house for 50 grand more to other people. So if you don't think that this doesn't happen, it happens. So that's why you have to be very careful about escalation clauses. Now, most builders really, it doesn't behoove most builders just to terminate a contract on somebody. Bird in the hand is better than two in the bush, right? So if they've been working with the client for that long, it doesn't really behoove them unless there's a scenario where they know they can reap the benefits. So it does happen. That's not at all what I said, Austin. Anyway, so I had that happen. So I've done videos regarding that. So I'm curious. I'm going to have to watch your video and subscribe to your channel and watch that video when it comes out, because that's pretty shitty.
I want to answer Mark's question specifically about.
Sorry, the bourbon's starting to get to me. The official sponsor is Piggyback from Whistle Pig. They donated $3 million to this channel. Thank you. I'm just kidding. I wish they did. Anyway, what was Mark's question?
He put it on there twice. There you go. So can a builder say costs have increased if tornado damage to a home? So this particular client, they would not tell us what costs increased. I tried every which way to get them to divulge what the costs were and if those costs were similar across the board to some of their other clients, because I knew other agents that had this, had a similar house under contract, and they did not tell anybody why. They just said costs are up. So they don't have to, apparently. You look in their contract, they don't have to say anything.
There's a lot of gray area there. That's why, and every builder has their own contract. They can put whatever they want in it. And that's the unfortunate part. There's always a lot of gray area of builders.
Yeah. I mean, you just have to be careful when you're reading. I mean, the biggest thing you have to, the two things you got to be very careful on a builder contract. Does a builder have in the contract for any reason that the builder can terminate on you? What are those reasons? Because most likely they're going to have something in there where they can terminate the contract. But what are those reasons? And number two, do they have an escalation clause? Because what happens to escalation clause is they go, hey, we incurred expenses. You're having to take up those expenses. So here you go. Or they're going to say, oh, by the way, you violated this in the contract. We're taking it back and putting it more. I think there was a question a while ago in here, something about the amount of inventory being, were we worried about the amount of inventory? And I think we answered the question as well, is that there's not as much inventory as they say there is available.
Right.
As far as new builds go.
Thanks, Steven.
Yeah.
Well, and I have a question. So if you guys have clients that come in and they get a contract, like a new build contract that has an escalation clause in there, do you and because inventory being as low as it is, and it's hard to find a home, do you just make sure they're aware of that and then they make that decision on their own? Do you advise one way or the other? Like, how have y'all been handling that?
What was the question? Sorry, I was reading. Sorry, I was like, what did Steven say?
If I'm having a buyer consult, oh my gosh, or sitting there with the builder, I'll make sure to ask that question, because what's happening is every builder lately seems to want to be sliding that in there. So it used to be where you could pick out the builders, you could sniff out the builders that would do that. And now it's like all of them are doing it as a cover their butt. So then the next question ends up being, how often has this happened in the past?
Yeah.
Historically, have you raised prices on people? That's a harder question for them to answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've had one client that's been under contract with, I think it was Coventry at that time, had a escalation clause in there. We have another one who's under contract with Coventry right now, but they didn't have the escalation clause in there. And that one is taking forever to build, but there's like $200,000 already in equity on that home, which is just crazy. But we absolutely have to have that conversation. If it's in there, because it was in there, we let them know, like, hey, there is an escalation clause. I think we were priced at like $550 in Blackhawk or something, like $500 in Blackhawk, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. And so luckily they did not raise the price on them, but it would have been awful. A week before closing, they go, "Hey, you accept this or we're putting it on the market." That would be terrible. So yeah. You got to be really careful with escalation clauses because how I've seen it written is that whatever the increase is, the buyer has to pay 50% of. That's how I saw it on the Coventry one, if I'm not mistaken. So if they say the cost increase is $30,000, you have to pay 15,000 of that. So they split the cost with you. Now the builder you worked with, I don't know if they had that on there, but to say $30,000 in costs, I mean, you could just say the prices. You could say we didn't incur any other costs, but we want 30 extra grand. So we raise the price. I mean, they technically can do that. That is a workaround, but is it fraudulent?
Patrick just posted a comment that you should read.
Post Malone. Oh, yep. MSone raised the price on us 3 weeks before closing. There was no escalation clause in our contract from 2020. When it went under contract, we have lawyers trying to get us to sue them. We have decided.
See, here's what's crazy about that. If you know that this particular builder, if you're watching this stream and you're hearing a builder doing this, you should probably be prepared for that. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah.
Be prepared.
Maybe Patrick didn't know that.
Said anything about it.
Question for Patrick. I don't think that there's much. Haven't decided. Sorry. So my question to you, Patrick, is how much did they increase it on you 3 weeks before? I just want to know what that was. What was the general price point that you were buying? And you don't have to tell us the neighborhood. I'll probably figure it out once you tell me the price point. But the question I have for you is that how much did it go up? Because I want to know if it's worth actually suing over and what reasons. It doesn't sound like they gave you a good reason. 30K. 30K seems to be this magic number. That's a lot. So one other question then, how does that impact your appraisal? Did it still appraise, or did they say we're raising it 30 grand no matter what, you have to pay the appraisal difference? That's a good question.
That's the problem. It'll probably appraise.
Yeah. At that price point.
No problem. No issue.
Yeah, it probably will appraise. I think I know which neighborhood that is. I think I talked about that neighborhood. I'm pretty sure I know which neighborhood that is. Dang. That sucks.
That's awful.
That sucks, man. Sorry, Patrick. I'm sorry that happened, but so people can see live on this channel, escalations do happen, whether it's not in the contract or not. I mean, it appraised well over. Yeah. Just a question. Do you have an agent that was helping you? I don't think there's much the agent really could have done other than repair you, but just curious if you have an agent helping you on that. Anyway.
So the other question I would have is, was that lender in-house or not? And the reason why I bring that up is because our increase didn't happen until we switched to Sarah.
Well,
was it coincidence or was
it wasn't a causation. I'm just saying.
Okay.
No. What I was going to say was funny about that is we actually, we actually had reached out earlier than that and letting them know that we were the lender. And then they knew. and then finally they got it. They weren't really responding to us. And then finally, I guess when push came to shove and they started responding, then that's when they did it. So yeah, I mean, who knows? But we did do we locked them in early and at a good time, so we got a lower rate.
Yeah, builder's lender. Interesting. So
then the reason why I say that is because they know, they absolutely know that you were well over appraisal, and they were like, we could bump it and he can't do anything about it.
This is the tricky thing, is that when I worked with this company and had this issue, it was the builder's lender who last minute sent them a termination. And we had proof that they were the post close. We found proof that they were shopping this to other people while we were still under contract 2 weeks before we closed. So why did the lender terminate it? Somehow the lender, and that the problem for us becomes, how do we prove that the lender and the builder's rep were in cahoots that's where the problem is.
I never shared this story publicly, but a while back, I had a situation where the builder just canceled the contract, never let me know as the realtor, and told the buyer that they couldn't make it work. Like the lender just said couldn't make it work to the builder, and the builder just terminated the contract. There was no opportunity to go to another lender, any recourse.
That's exactly what happened.
Tell me.
That's
the
exactly
same thing?
what happened. Yeah.
Crazy, man.
The lender did.
And it was a high-end builder. That's the other part of it. Everybody. Oh.
That's so crazy. It's just wrong. I'm sorry. It's just so wrong. Like, it's because I know the clients that Jeremy were talking about because I've helped them. And then like we were able to help them like get like their money back after what ended up being resolved with that situation. But it's just, you can't, like, I hate that there's so much gray area around the legality of builders and like all their in-house people. And they're not held to the same rules that we are as outside lenders. And it's just, and I hear these stories and it makes me sad and cringe. I feel bad for people.
The one I'm thinking is in North Austin, just north of Round Rock. That's where I'm thinking. It's a small community. I could be wrong. It's something to, this is a good one. So I'm just going to call you Raj. Sorry. Booked a home with Highlands at Liberty Hill. Highland was a great home and builder in 2021. Made an equity of 140,000. They're worried about the mortgage rates. I mean, you have 140 in equity. Yeah, you're going to be paying a little bit more. But if you try to go buy that same house right now, you're still going to be hit with the same interest rates and still hit with a higher price. So I think you're not in the best position because of interest rates, but I don't think you're in a bad position at all. I'm not your agent, but that's what I tell you.
I think he actually called me. Steven mentioned Trek should regulate builders. They do not report to Trek.
There's they're regulated by the National Association of Builders, I think, but what
does that mean?
Who pays it? Which hands grease which pockets? Yeah. So how can you say, oh yeah, okay, like, yeah, the Builders Association is going to go after
builders title company and the builders lender and the builders warranty and the builders might as well be the builders. Yeah, builders. Yeah, throw that in there. Builders insurance now.
I'm sure they help them write their contracts too. I'm just kidding. I don't know that that's true. it's false information.
Like that fake news. From the record.
Yeah, I'm just kidding. I don't know. I'm talking out of my rear end.
I've seen the Micron thing come up a bunch. I don't have any new information on that. Do you?
Yeah, they said Taylor, but I don't think it's going to be Taylor. But Aaron, your good friend Aaron, 6 properties now, Aaron, or 7? Forgot. Aaron, sand is a big problem. Now, people don't think about this. So it was funny. People gave me a hard time about my friend that owns land in East Austin. They said it made it really dusty for the homes in Easton Park. But trust me, they are vital to what's going on. They are trucking in sand and holding sand because they're buying land. If they're finding land that has sand on it, they're buying it because with Samsung building, they don't even have enough sand for the concrete to build the foundation for that plant. So sand has become a very expensive commodity that we don't have, and they're having to go outside of Austin to find sand just to be able to make concrete. So you have that cost, plus on top of that, you have the fact that nobody wants to work, but people that are working want to go somewhere else for $1 or $2 more and they leave. So it's really hard for crews to maintain their payroll because people keep leaving jobs to go make $1 or $2 more, which, I mean, I don't have a comment on that. I'm just saying that's what's happening. Did you know that about Sandy Ian? What? I did.
What? Ooh, where?
I didn't know that about sand. I learned something.
There you go. I am useful, I promise. Sarah, when you compete against a builder's lender, do buyers usually go with you or outside lenders or the builder's lenders? I can actually comment on this. I would say not not every time, and I've seen Sarah say this. Sarah will tell people you're getting a better deal with the builder's lender. Go with the builder's lender. I've seen that happen. There are several times though Sarah has been able to win that, and from my experience, win that and actually provide a better service or provide a better price. But Sarah, I'll let you answer the question.
Yeah, so I'll say not like I don't win the business like 100% of the time, because at the end of the day, I'm more about relationships and I'm not transactional. A builder lender is transactional. So when I look at a client situation, if I see they're truly getting something bigger and better from that I can't match or beat, or there's no reason why they should go with me besides I have a lovely sparkly personality, then I'll let them know that. Just like Jeremy said, I'll be like, hey, I'd love to do business with you, but you're truly getting this, this, and this. But I will say a good portion of the time, I am actually doing a lot of builder business. I think about almost 70% right now. My purchase business is actually new builds. So I'm getting a lot of new construction, new build clients that are going with us because we're able to offer other things as well as advice and strategy that the builder lenders just aren't offering or aren't able to do. And what's most important is that this is probably the biggest debt you'll ever take on in your life. And you want to make sure you have someone that's actually asking you the questions and concerned about how that affects you and how that affects what you're trying to do and what your financial goals are. And if you value that and that's important to you, great. Then a lender like myself would probably be a great match. But if you want something transactional and all the buzzes and all the whistles, pregnancy brain, of saving like $3,000 when actually there's probably going to cost you more money, then those people usually stick with the builder lender. But yeah.
And what's interesting is there's times like when I purchased the house I'm in now, we didn't go with Sarah. We went with the builder's lender. But there's others that we've gone with Sarah over the builder's lender. So it depends. It's, business is business. So, so sorry, Sarah.
You're fine.
But shout out to you. So Sarah, people are going to be reaching out to you because they always do, because they love you. You're about to have a third child. Your husband went on 3 deployments. Every deployment you've come back with a child. So good thing he's not going on a 4th deployment. So Sarah, how are you going to be able to manage going forward with clients, being the fact that you're about to, have a baby?
Have a baby. Yeah, no, I actually have a team. So I have a full team in place. So even though I'm going to be having a baby and I'm going to be out with baby for a little bit, I have a full team that is here for all of our clients, our new clients, potential clients, etc. And between all of us, we have probably 100 years of experience. So everyone's going to be well taken care of. I have a team email, and I have everyone standby and ready. And I'm still a phone call away from them. But yeah, I have a fantastic team that's here to help everybody.
The answer's no, we can't find that one. Yes, you got the
house. But yeah, no, everything is going to keep going as usual. My team is there to help everyone. So
cool. I went to Hawaii last week and my team handled everything. I was very happy. We've gotten to hire some people the last few weeks, which has been great. Michael, this is a great question. I've met with the builder's agent, who I love. I love the builder's agent. What's her name? I forgot her name though. God, why don't I forget her name?
Is it the one out in Caldera?
They do. So what Mid-Century does is they buy lots and then they'll sell you, they'll say this lot. So they'll buy the lot or procure the lot, and then they'll sell to you the lot for a lot more. And then they'll put their product on it. The problem I had with this builder, and it could be different now, there is no getting an factual pricing. It was, we can build this. Oh, if we do this, it's like it's 250 a square foot, or if we do this, it's 280 a square foot, but there was no like actual pricing. So I think they build a very unique product. I haven't been inside any of their finished product. I've only seen renderings. I've been in product that's being built. Amber, that's her name. The builder's reps, Amber. She's very nice. I've worked with her several times on different stuff in the past. I don't really have anything negative to say about Mid-Century Homes. Just the fact that it was really hard to get good pricing from them, and the owner is very proud of his company, very proud of his company. So that's it. That's all I can give you.
I was gonna say and I reached out to you this because my grandparents were trying to move closer to us, and then it was like, whoa, like pricing is not within their price point for retired people. So, but but my husband and I actually walked through a Mid-Century Home because I really like the outside of them because it's so unique and different. And we went inside one of them, and they actually like sent an email saying, you know, oh, all pricing's gone up because like everyone, you know, because of supply chain issues and everything. But everyone was so friendly, but I do like the outside of those homes just because they are so unique and different and not like the standard that you've seen with a lot of new builds. Anyway,
they do a good job of marketing, because I know some other private builders that make phenomenal homes that don't do the level of marketing they do. So they've done a very good job about doing paid ads on Instagram and stuff. So that's why you're seeing their product more. But it's that really nice, like mid-century modern farmhouse feel for some of their stuff. So I haven't seen a finished product yet, but from what I saw, it's all right.
Lots of windows and light. And I think almost all of them are like single story, anyway. Yeah.
Yeah. And did you get any clients from South by Southwest?
I've had conversations, but nothing under contract from there.
I was out of town during South by, which is sad because it's my favorite event.
It's still
my wife
going.
had to have a 40th birthday, man. Right? 40th birthday for my wife.
It's still going though. You can get down there tonight. As soon as we're done with this, you can head down. Yeah, you still have the rest of this week.
Oh man, is that true?
It's 2 weeks.
I thought it ended 20th.
I know that you have the tech, you have the music, and you have the film. I was jealous because I'm a film buff, and one of my friends got to see meet Nicolas Cage in person. And that
was he gone in 60 seconds?
It's the 20th. It ended.
I told you the 20th.
I didn't get to go. I mean, I was down there, but I didn't like stop in anything, and I didn't realize that I needed. Oh my God, because I was in San Diego. Why was I in California during South by in Austin? How did that happen?
Can't tell you.
I was flying back, so I flew into San Diego on that Friday coming back, and there's a bunch of bands in San Diego getting on the plane coming back, and I want to be like, so playing South by, huh? That honestly, South by is my favorite event. I will never forget. I said this on the channel about God, what's the name of that band? Anyway, they're a Texas band. They're playing, but so in the middle of this happening, it was raining. The dude singing "Let the Rain Come Down" outside the venue, and the marshal or the police or sheriffs came and shut the whole thing down. So we got kicked out, but we've been standing the entire time by like the guy that runs the mixer. So when we try to get back in, because they cleared the whole building out of fire marshal, too many people, it's raining. Well, the sound mixer guy saw me and my wife, and were like, "Hey, come on in." And so they're like, "Oh, they're with you." And I was like, "Hey, thanks, man." And then we got to sit and have drinks with the band from the band Lifehouse. Just sit at that bar having drinks with the band Lifehouse. It was the coolest event. It was the coolest thing ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was super cool. I saw Nick Jonas there. Was that Cake? Cake by the Ocean. I saw them. Oh man, so many good bands. Like Face to Face. It was great. I love South by. Well, all right, there we go. We were an hour and 22 minutes. We've gone over. Sarah's about to have a baby right now. Chris is going to take her to the emergency room. So everybody cheers. Whistle Pig. I'm not going to lie. This was a good one. We'll catch you on the next one.